Here's why you play Aldous, the sole contractor in the EXP lane. First off, he's a hard-hitting hero who can eliminate squishy enemies with a single enhanced basic attack once he builds up his stacks. He can be built defensively and still deal massive amounts of damage, making him both tanky and deadly. His excellent chasing ability allows him to quickly engage enemies in the open with his ultimate. Additionally, his ultimate gives global map presence, allowing him to either join team fights or apply pressure across the map. However, Aldous is weak in the early game as he needs time to build up his stacks. He's also vulnerable to crowd control, making him easy to shut down if caught. Lastly, enemies can harass him to slow down his stack accumulation, delaying his power spike. Aldous' passive, Contract Transform, grants him a shield after every 2 basic attacks, which lasts for a few seconds on his next basic attack. This shield increases based on the number of soul steel stacks he has. This makes him more durable in extended fights, allowing him to take more hits while dishing out damage. Aldous' first skill, Contract Soul Steel, enhances his next basic attack to deal additional physical damage based on the number of soul steel stacks he has. If he kills an enemy hero, siege minion, or jungle monster with this attack, he gains extra stacks of soul steel, significantly increasing his damage over time. The enhanced attack deals extra damage to minions and creeps, making it an essential tool for farming and scaling into the late game. Aldous' second skill, Contract Explosion, enters a defensive stance, gaining damage reduction and increased movement speed for a few seconds or until he manually cancels it. Afterward, he deals physical damage to nearby enemies and stuns them for a short duration. The longer he stays in this defensive stance, the stronger the stun effect becomes. This skill is great for mitigating damage and setting up kills. Aldous' ultimate, Contract Chase Fate, allows him to gain vision of all enemy heroes for a few seconds. If he uses a skill again, he dashes toward a chosen enemy, dealing physical damage based on the target's max HP and knocking them back upon impact. This skill is great for picking off isolated enemies, stopping enemy recalls, and quickly joining fights across the map. A typical 2 combo for Aldous will start with his ultimate to gain vision and target the most vulnerable enemy. Dash towards the target of the ultimate and knock them back, immediately use first to enhance basic attack and deal heavy damage. Use second skill to absorb damage and stun the enemy, and finish off with another basic attack if needed. Moving on to builds, I usually build Tough Boots, Thunder Belt, Blade of the Heptases, Malefic Roar, Antique Cuirass, and finally, Athena's Shield. These are the emblems that go along with this build. As for battle spells, the best battle spells for Aldous in my opinion are Sprint and Flicker. Sprint helps Aldous reposition, chase enemies, or escape dangerous fights, whereas Flicker allows him to engage or disengage more effectively, especially if his ultimate is on cooldown. Aldous counters heroes like Zilong and Leomore, as these heroes struggle against Aldous in the late game as he can easily one-shot them with his stacks. However, heroes like Martis and Diroth, who are early game fighters, can pressure Aldous, preventing him from stacking effectively. Aldous pairs well with heroes like Bellman and Bruno, who are strong early game heroes who can create space for Aldous to farm safely. You should max first skill first, as it is Aldous' main source of damage, level up second skill as a backup for sustained crowd control, and most importantly, upgrade the ultimate whenever available. Aldous is a late game powerhouse, but he needs to farm safely in the early game to build out his soul steel stacks. Focus on last hitting minions with his first skill to maximize your stacks as quickly as possible. Avoid unnecessary fights early on, as Aldous is weak before he has enough stacks. Use your ultimate wisely. It's not just for engaging, but also for scouting enemy positions and preventing recalls. In team fights, target enemy damage dealers rather than tanks to maximize your impact. When split pushing, keep an eye on the minimap so you can quickly join fights across the map with your ultimate. Finally, position yourself well in fights, and if you're ahead, you can dive into the enemy backline, but if you're behind, focus on farming until you're strong enough to contribute.